Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for part 8 of the 32-part series, breaking down every single team in the NFL, going game by game and predicting what that win-loss record will be. And today, it's the Cleveland Browns. Don't click out yet. There is stuff to talk about with Cleveland because I have gotten through the terrible season that they had last year. I've gone through all the off seasons moves that they've made. I've gone through the statistics and everything that could possibly go right and wrong for this team. And I am sitting here to tell you that I am stunned that this team has a number on the Vegas sports books right now that is 5.5 for their win total. This is a team that was 6.5 a few weeks ago. It has been pushed down to 5.5, but a team that is predicted to win at least 5 games, maybe even 6. Going through everything and going through the schedule, which is what we will do over the next half hour here on the Tony Squares NFL channel. I am stunned to see a number at 5.5, but maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there is a few nuggets on this schedule when we get there that can give Cleveland a few more wins than you expect. Because when we grade through this roster, man, there are a lot of hopeful pieces, a lot of youthful exuberance on this team. However, it is by far the worst quarterback situation in the entirety of the NFL. And could that be enough to hold it all back in Todd Monken's first year? I don't know. But thank you for joining. Excited to break through the final team in the C's as we go through all 32 teams before kickoff. Going to have to hammer a few as we get through this, but we've had a lot of fun with Cincinnati, with Baltimore, two of the divisional opponents for Cleveland. So let's finish off with the Cleveland Browns and hit up the good, the bad, and the ugly for Cleveland this year. And the good is this defense. Yes, Myles Garrett is gone, traded away to the Rams at a hefty price. And I do have to say, considering the contract that Myles Garrett has, it stings for all those people who have Garrett jerseys in a Browns uniform. However, that trade for Jared Verse was a fantastic one if you're trying to rebuild a team that desperately needed to be rebuilt. They got a boatload in return, and I don't think they take too far of a step back on defense. In fact, last season with Myles Garrett, and with the play caller that is no longer there in Jim Schwartz, this defense was pretty damn excellent. They were number one in the world in yards allowed per drive. However, they let up a lot of points because that offense kept on turning the ball over and couldn't get drives started on their own. But Cleveland's defense still headstrong, forcing the third best punts per drive in the entire NFL. And they could not turn the other team over. They were only 26 in turnovers per drive. That led to a -7 turnover margin for the entirety of the team. Could that come back to normal? Probably not with Shador and Deshaun Watson back there, but you hope it does. You hope that probability comes back to the norm if you're betting the over on that 5.5 number. Cleveland's one-score record last year was 3-6 in one-score games, including a victory against my Green Bay Packers, which was absolutely disgusting, but it was a microcosm of what Cleveland did last year. This high-powered Green Bay offense really struggling in the muck against a Cleveland team that had no business being in this game with Green Bay, and yet they survived, made Green Bay make mistakes in the end, and stole a victory. That's what they did all last season, and I don't believe the Myles Garrett to Jared Verse drop-off is that large of a drop-off, especially with the draft picks that are coming in. Jared Verse in traditional dropbacks last year had the 8th best pressure rate in the league. Myles Garrett was 12th. Overall, Jared Verse had the 15th best pressure rate in the league. Is he the game stopper that Myles Garrett is? Absolutely not. However, he is still a dominant player coming off of the edge and extremely young for this Cleveland team to build around. So I love that trade, and you hope that that defense, even without Schwartz, can still hold up their end of the bargain, because in order for them to hit the over on 5.5, this defense needs to be as dominant as it has been under Schwartz. Without Schwartz, I don't know if it happens, but I am hoping overall that the defense can hold up. And I do also want to talk about the bad part, because this is a part that I'm sort of unsure on. Andrew Berry, the GM, has been that GM for a while. It has been a lot of stuff that you're going to go, why does this guy still have a job? The Deshaun Watson contract and trade to start off. The fact that Myles Garrett is no longer there and they could not win with him on the team, that's on Andrew Berry. However, he has made, in my opinion, a myriad of good decisions for this team, including the Travis Hunter decision the year prior. I think this guy is, yeah, I don't think underrated is the right word, because he's made a lot of brain dead moves. However, there are some moves he has made and some draft picks that he has made that has kept Cleveland semi relevant. It just has not worked out because of the quarterback situation. I am excited with what this guy did in the offseason, particularly when it came to the myriad of draft picks that they had. Every single draft pick when it came off the board, 1 through 100, made me happy if I was a Cleveland Brown fan, from taking Spencer Fano when they did exactly what they needed, arguably the best lineman in the draft, to double down on wide receiver with KC Concepcion and Denzel Boston. You needed playmakers in this offense, and you went and got two of them. Should have been first round picks, and yet you got them later on. What's his name? Emmanuel McNeil Warren, a great safety that they don't really know what he's going to be in the NFL. So he started to fall a little bit. Cleveland was more than happy to pick him back up, and then got another tackle in Florida at the end of that third round. They have a myriad of draft picks high up in the draft because this team has been so terrible. And yet I think that guy really hit a home run with the way he used his draft picks in this most recent draft. And then he fixed, other than quarterback, the biggest problem from 2025 in Cleveland, and that was that offensive line. This offensive line will arguably have all five new starters on it, and they need them too. They had in the running game in particular, yards before contact to the running back, the Quinshawn Judkins drafters of the world. They were the worst in the NFL in yards before contact to the running back, but they weren't just the worst last year. They were the worst since 2012, that offensive line last season, and now it's all gone. And we'll go through the roster in a second, but they spent a bunch in free agency, obviously spent 2 draft picks on guys that should start, and they're going to revamp that whole thing, and hopefully it leads to success elsewhere. I'm excited to see what this guy did. However, if this team fails, I do believe he's not going to be there next season. And the ugly part of this team is quarterback position. I'm sorry to all the Shedeur Sanders fans out there. I'm sorry to the one remaining Deshaun Watson fan. This quarterback situation is by far the worst in the NFL, and the statistics prove it. And as I said, Shedeur was under fire all last year. People are going to say he had no one to throw to. I agree with that completely. Yet still, out of 45 qualified QBs, or qualifying QBs, I should say, he was 43rd in EPA per dropback. He was 45th in completion rate per dropback. He was 43rd in success rate per dropback. Every single statistic you look at, no matter how much he was under fire, no matter how much he didn't have people to throw to, he did not do anything of note last season. And Dillon Gabriel arguably was the better passer of the football. And so in this QB competition, Cleveland is looking at the next generation, saying, we just spent draft picks on these two guys. Could they lead us forward? Or do we go with the guy we're still paying an unbelievable boatload of money to in Deshaun Watson? Well, Warren Sharp broke down Deshaun Watson's career pretty vividly in his most recent write-up. Out of the last 5 years, all the quarterbacks that qualified, there was 59 of them. The numbers I just gave you for Shedeur Sanders being 43rd, 45th out of 45, Deshaun Watson was 59th in EPA per dropback out of 59. He was 57th in success rate. He was 53rd in completion percentage. He was just as bad, if not worse, than Shedeur Sanders has been. And he's arguably playing with better players around him and a better offensive line, a younger offensive line when Watson was last healthy. This man tore his Achilles, the same Achilles, 2 times in a row. The second one, allegedly, because he was not following proper protocols in his rehab stint. And now they expect either Deshaun Watson to come back and be the savior, or year 2 of Shedeur to bring them out of the muck. I am terrified at the prospects of that. And that alone is the one thing that blinds me about that 5.5 number. I do not know how Shedeur, Deshaun Watson, or Dillon Gabriel win you 6 games in the NFL in 2026. But maybe I'm wrong. We have to dive into the roster first. But before we get there, I'm excited to see all of the viewers in the live feed on YouTube here. We're breaking down all 32 teams. This is team number 8. We'll be on Facebook, on YouTube, pretty much every day from now until kickoff. If you're missing this live, go back and check on the YouTube pages. We'll go through. They're each about a half hour to 45 minutes long, because I really want to give you everything I've learned about these teams. And I don't just want to say win, loss. I want to give you reasonings behind it. But if you have the time to come in live, turn on those notifications and hit that subscribe button. It'll give you a little alert when I go live, so you can come in and make fun of me as I'm making fun of these teams. I'm more than happy about it. My man Marvin Moms. I don't know if that's the mom of Marvin or if it's a Marvin the Martian play on words. Either way, I enjoy it. I think Watson will be a dumpster fire. Somehow Shedeur seems like the safer option. I agree. If Deshaun Watson is starting in week 1, the only reason that would happen to me, into my eyes, is because of the head coach Todd Monken believing, for whatever reason, that Deshaun Watson is more of a Monken guy than the Shador situation is. Because no matter how green, how beautiful you view Shador Sanders, no matter how rose-colored glasses you are on Shador, you cannot deny that he comes with a little bit of a bravado surrounding him. There was a documentary crew surrounding him for the past few years of his life. I'm sure the guy doesn't believe his shit stinks. That's just me. And if Todd Monken comes in and sees that, hey, at least there's a humble guy in Deshaun Watson, don't think that sentence has ever been said, then maybe he's the one that's going to run this unit. I'd be interested if you could get a truth serum into the wide receiver group and the tight end group here, who they would want to be the quarterback throwing them the football if they had to choose between the two. Who knows? They might like Dylan Gabriel the best. I'm not sure. But I do believe Shador Sanders is the better player. And yes, I agree with you, Mitch, creator of the Squib Fantasy Football League that I am somehow taking a part of, even though they just keep making fun of me for the entirety of it. It's okay. We'll see what happens when the games are played. I agree with Mitch. The QB battle here is still trash versus garbage. But is the entire team trash? Not sure. Let's break down the roster here. QB room's getting an F. We're just starting off that. QB room is getting an F, and you can't go get back from that. Excited to see this running back room grow, though, because I really like Dylan Sampson. Before we even get to Quinshon, I really think Dylan Sampson could be a facet in any offense in the NFL, and I'm excited to see him kind of get that spell running back role if Quinshon can come back to being the volume back that he is. That injury, though, was pretty terrible, and it's not exactly one that people bounce back from immediately. He is practicing, he is taking contact, he is doing all the things you want him to do on those rehab stints. However, a little bit worried that it could cost him a few snaps in the future, which is why Dylan Sampson, I think, is a very important piece here. If this running back room takes that next step, though, as I said, worst yards before contact they ran into last year, worse since 2012, and that led to Quinshon Judkins having his average of rushes going for 5+ yards, the worst in the NFL at converting those to 5+ yards. I think they can grow with a better offensive line, so I'm giving this running back room a C minus. Getting to that offensive line, though, there are a lot of cast-offs here, like the Elton Jenkins of the world who came from my Green Bay Packers, Titus Howard, Zion Johnson, but then the draft picks coming in with Spencer Fano. I do think Austin Barber is going to have some play in here, even if they kick him inside to take over for Tevin Jenkins. I really like what Cleveland did with this offensive line. I think this is an offensive line that can absolutely maul people in the run game. We've seen the Titus Howards of the world get beat. We don't know if Spencer Fano with his little arms can play left tackle in the NFL. So yes, pass protection could be a question, but if you're just setting this up to run, to run, to run, to run, and what Todd Monken wants to do with an offense, I think this is the perfect offensive line for him. I cannot believe they've revamped it as fast as they did. And if they get any of these former young draft picks like the Zach Zinters of the world to step up and be a player in the depth chart, I really think this could be a really fun and fearsome offensive line made of spare parts, the island of misbegot toys. I'm giving it a C plus. I think this offensive line can be really, really good. And then we get to the pass catchers, which is a big question mark. Jerry Jeudy, the only one of any ilk whatsoever. Isaiah Bond is still here, but you wonder what the two rookies can do in Denzel Boston. I keep calling him David Boston. Denzel Boston and KC Concepcion. They're two very different guys, where Denzel is definitely a boundary receiver. KC is going to play more in the middle. And you wonder if the team is accurate enough to make KC effective in this game. I don't know if they are. Denzel, however, they're going to be able to throw the ball up to him, and he'll be able to make contested catches all over the place. I'm very high on Denzel. And then Harold Fannin kind of plays in that same world that KC does, those yards after the catch ability. So I wonder if KC and Harold kind of eat into each other when it comes to fantasy assets. However, if you're looking at grading this part of the roster, it's a lot of youth here. We saw what Harold Fannin could do last season. Jerry Jeudy's not a number one in my eyes, but he's put up 1,000 yards before. Could we turn back the clock and get him back into his prime? I'm not sure. I really enjoy what I'm seeing. I'm giving it a C minus. They might be too high for Cleveland, but I'm giving it a C minus because I believe in the draft picks and I believe in the growth here. Just got to hope someone can get them the ball. And then you turn it around on defense. Again, Garrett isn't here. Guys, I love this defense. I love this defense. I think Mason Graham is excellent on the interior. I already talked about how good Jared Verse is. They don't have a lot of depth here, and you worry about the injuries, but this defensive line can really get after it if they're healthy. It's not Garrett. It's never going to be Garrett. No one in the world is Myles Garrett, but I'm still giving that D line a solid B. I think they can really be really good. And then bringing in Quincy Williams to play next to the defensive rookie of the year at the linebacker position. This is also fantastic. It's a fantastic linebacker room. I don't think Quincy Williams is too old to play in the NFL anymore, and especially when he has Carson next to him, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So the off-ball linebackers to me are also a B. And then I love the defensive back core. I do. Grant Delpit, Denzel Ward. I love these dudes. Drafting McNeil Warren and throwing him out there. D'Angelo Ross coming over. Miles Bryant. I think there's a lot of faith here that this team can come together and really set it up. And Denzel Ward's one of the best number one corners in the league. I think it's a slight step back from what they had last season, and obviously Schwartz isn't calling the plays anymore, but this defense will still get after it. But the big question is the QB going to do enough to win them games? I know I keep bringing it up and harping on it, but it's still everything you say about this team, you still have the question mark, the biggest question mark at the most important position, and that holds back the hope everywhere. But does it hold back the hope in the fantasy world? I think it kind of does too. The one fantasy target that I am targeting on this terrible Browns unit is Boston. And that's because he is going the latest. He's going after KC. He's going well after the Quinshon Judkins of the world. And I already told you about how Quinshon struggled to make big plays. You're betting a lot on the offensive line if you take Quinshon. And then I don't think the Dylan is going to get enough run as the wide receiver too in order to make him a viable draft pick. I do, however, see Boston, even though some people have labeled him the sacrificial X on this team. I do see Boston as the big winner when this all shakes out. We're already hearing stuff from camp that he is playing with the starters, and I knew he would because he does factor into that run game what Monken wants to do. And if you look at what Monken did in Baltimore last year, and you're wondering, hey, can I get KC Concepcion, see him out there in 3 wide receiver sets? Granted, Baltimore, vastly differently built team than Cleveland, but Baltimore ran 13 personnel at the 32nd lowest rate, aka the worst rate. They ran at the least. They ran 3 wide receivers out there almost never. They ran 12 personnel and 22 personnel at the 3rd and 4th highest rate, respectively. They loved throwing multiple, or at least back in Baltimore because they had the assets. They loved throwing multiple tight ends out there, which means to me, they're going to be less wide receivers. And I don't think it's going to be Jerry Jeudy all the time. I don't think it's going to be KC all the time. I think he's going to get the most snaps for this Cleveland team. Now, does that lead to the most targets? I don't know. But if I'm going with opportunity cost, especially where he's being drafted in a best ball draft or later on in a guillotine draft, I'm taking Boston every single time. And I hope I'm right. I hope Denzel is Denzel, but that's the man I'm throwing my hat on if I must draft a Cleveland Brown. And then Marvin agrees with the defense take. Even without Garrett, they can be a top 10 defense. Man, you could not have had a worse offense to play behind. They were 32nd in so many rankings. I didn't even bother talking about them at the start of the video. You can't have a worse offense to play behind and still put up the numbers that they put up. Again, first in the league in yards per drive on the defensive side of the ball. That's so hard to do when you're just constantly out there for that many snaps in a game. So losing Myles Garrett is obviously a huge, huge drop. But with the players that are still there, I don't think that fall from grace is going to be as large. So I agree. Defense is going to play well. Offense is not going to play so well. Boston could grow into that role. But all that matters is can they win? Is this going to mean that they're going to win games? Because I started this whole entire thing being shocked that they are that number is 5.5 for the Vegas win total because it seems remarkably high. And when I was doing all my offseason research, that Cleveland number was actually 6.5, and it's been bet down to 5.5. But you can see the numbers at the bottom of your screen right now. This is from DraftKings. I checked it an hour ago. The minus 136 on the over means people are betting that still to go over. The money is heading towards the over 5.5. People believe this is a 6-win team or better. If you want to take the under, you're getting plus money at 5.5. If you want to take Cleveland to make the playoffs, you think they're going to be really, really good, and Shador makes the leap, then they're plus 570. If you think Cleveland, that QB room will hold them back completely, and there's not enough depth, and Todd Monken's a terrible coach, fewest wins in the NFL is 10-1. I don't know where I land. I want to go through these games one by one. As you can tell, I already have 6 L's on the board. That is not set in stone. That is simply from videos we've done in the past, the Carolina, the Baltimores, the Cincinnatis, the Atlanta. All of those games, when I got to this part of the video with those teams, I saw the Cleveland and I immediately went, you know what? That's going to be a win for the other side. That might change as we go through these ones. Cleveland schedule also, if you're looking at rest advantages and disadvantages, week 6 versus Baltimore. Baltimore is coming off of a short week road game, I believe. Or maybe that's the international game where they have to play Cleveland, and Cleveland has a little bit of a head start when it comes to rest advantages. Obviously, week 5 right before that, they're playing off of a mini bye. They get 3 extra days when they play the New York Jets. Week 9 is trouble, though, because it is their 3rd straight road game. So I mark that as a rest disadvantage for them when they head to New Orleans. And New Orleans is also coming off of their bye week to play that game. So that's going to be a tough one for Cleveland. My favorite one that I didn't add to the key is week 12. Vegas Raiders are coming to Cleveland. That's a 10 a.m. game for those Vegas Raider body clocks. It's a 1 p.m. kickoff on the East Coast. So let's dive in, starting off with Trevor Lawrence and the defending champion Jacksonville Jaguars. We've seen Trevor Lawrence give the ball up quite a bit, and we've heard so much Parker Washington vibes and how this team is going to be base shell tooting all over the place, and the Travis Hunter is going to play both sides of the ball. This is the first upset I want to give. It really is. I don't want to spoil too much about the Jacksonville Jaguars video, but I am not buying the hype, blowing the smoke up Liam Cohen's butt like everyone else is. I am going to give the win to Jacksonville here, but I am hesitant to do so. Let me get back on caps lock. I'm hesitant to do so because I don't believe Jacksonville is as strong as last season, and I don't believe they're going to create as many turnovers as last season. However, if Shador, Deshaun Watson is throwing them the ball, then they might get a couple of freebies in this one. So that's the first loss officially on this schedule. The next one we have is at Tampa Bay, and I have the same feeling about Tampa that I do about Jacksonville. I don't think this team is going to be as strong as people expect. The defense is already getting injuries. Vita Vea on the trade block. Baker Mayfield's not signing the new contract. We have injuries to McMillan. Egbuka's pulling up lame. Like, there's just a couple of things. We don't know if Bucky Irvin wants to play football. I want to find a way to split these first 2 games and give one to Cleveland. And I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to give Tampa Bay a loss at Tampa in week 2 to the Cleveland Browns. They just can't get past that defense. And very similarly to that Green Bay game last year, Cleveland wins very late thanks to Baker Mayfield throwing a heartbreaking interception of the defensive line. Don't bring it up, Jordan Love. Fuck. Week 3, Carolina. I have this going in the Carolina video, Carolina's way. That's the first change we're making. I just can't see Bryce Young putting up any points on this defense, and I somehow have the Cleveland Browns shocking everybody behind a strong run game and a new offensive line and a stout defense at 2-1. However, they're losing that game against Pittsburgh. It's Thursday night. It's at home. Divisional matchup. I think Aaron Rodgers owns shitty teams in his division, and we've seen that relatively common throughout the Aaron Rodgers era. Then the New York Jets, 3 extra days rest. Geno Smith against this defense. People are propping up the Jets as the surprise team of the season. However, I don't see it here. I'm giving Cleveland a victory, and suddenly we're 3-3, man. Suddenly we're 3-3. God damn it. Am I going to give the over to Cleveland? This is disgusting. This is disgusting. 3 straight road games. I can already tell you right now I'm giving the loss to New Orleans because that 3rd straight road game and New Orleans coming off the bye. I'm giving the loss there. However, we don't need many more wins to give Cleveland this over. We already have 3 on the board. I like Tennessee a lot this season. Do I like Cam Ward enough to beat this defense at home? I think I do. I think I do. And then it comes to Pittsburgh. Do I want Pittsburgh to sweep the Cleveland Browns? Man, this is tough. Yeah, I don't think so. Sorry, Cleveland fans. We've started off 3-3, 3-2 even, and we've lost 4 straight, and we're going to make it 5 straight up here in week 10 before we hit the bye. It's not. People have figured it out. People have figured out what we want to do. Todd Monken's scheme is getting roasted out there, and when we face good defenses and stuff is against us, the 3 straight road games followed up by Houston, we need this bye week. But 3 wins Again, things were hopeful, not so much anymore. We come back to Vegas, and thankfully to that body clock and also the 7 days fresh start for us, we're gonna steal a win from likely Fernando at this point, but I still don't have any hope that Vegas can beat this defense, with Cleveland coming off fresh as daisies because we just had 3 straight road games. Now we have 3 straight, home games here with Vegas, Cincy, and Atlanta, and I am tempted to change that Atlanta one around too. I am tempted to change that Atlanta one around. That would give Cleveland their 5th win. Let's hold off for a second because I don't think they're beating the Giants, and then that means Indy. Yeah, the Baltimore game at Baltimore week 16, week 18 at Cincy. Cincy has extra rest. That's all staying the same. Week 13 at Cincy, that's all staying losses for Cleveland. Cincy and Baltimore are better than the Cleveland Browns. Period. The week 14 Atlanta and the week 17 Indy is what I'm staring at here because if I believe that over is what people are betting, that this could be a 6-win team, you have to win Atlanta, you have to win Indy. I've already changed one for Carolina. I'm not doing it for Atlanta, and I don't know if I'm doing it for Indy either. Indianapolis is better than this team. Indianapolis is better than this team. I'm going under. I'm giving this team 4 wins, and frankly, I'm surprised that it's that many wins. I have them starting off as 3-2. And they end up winning only 1 game the rest of the season, likely leading to Andrew Berry being fired, potentially leading to Todd Monken being fired. It all depends on can this offense be better than 32nd that they were last season? Can we get any growth out of that quarterback position? I do think the defense holds strong, but this offense weighs them down like a rock, and they fumble it late with all of these losses as the schedule gets going. Doesn't matter if it's cold games, doesn't matter if it's anything at all. Rest advantage, rest disadvantage. I'm giving those losses as they start piling up to Cleveland. And that is the end of it for Cleveland, man. 4-13. That's the under 5.5, potentially taking under 4.5 if you want to get frisky. Because again, I gave them wins against better teams, Tampa Bay, Carolina. So yeah, I think that might be the end here. We do have one more question. What are your thoughts if Rodgers doesn't play either of the Steelers games? Can the Browns snag a W? I believe it's Mason Rudolph still. And Mason Rudolph, while he doesn't, light the world on fire, I think he's a perfectly serviceable backup. And no, I don't think that's guaranteed. Could they snag a win? Yes. Could they snag a win? Absolutely. I don't think it's a guarantee. That could definitely factor in if you want to bet that over. And Raul over here said he drove by Monken's house and there was a ceramic horse head in the trash wrapped in a 2 jersey. There's going to be a lot of jokes to be made about the Cleveland Browns this year. There's going to be a lot of jokes to be made about the Cleveland Browns this year. But that is it for the Cleveland Browns video. 4-13 is the final judgment on what their record will be, potentially leaving them up for a first overall pick, getting that QB of the future. They do have Arizona, I have as a 3-win team, but this is the second worst record I've predicted so far. So potentially there's a chance. And then tomorrow we're going to be breaking down the D teams, Dallas Cowboys, Detroit Lions, Denver Broncos. I would like to do some of that tonight. However, my Green Bay Packers are about to kick off their first preseason game. I need to make sure Marshawn Lloyd stays on 2 feet. That's all I care. I'm going to be watching this with my hands over my eyes, hoping everyone leaves healthy, and that's what we're going to be diving into. But the rest of the teams continue. Thank you so much for watching this one. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, help the channel grow, and I shall see you